Hello, this is my global cinema portfolio. I will be discussing in my table of contents an about me, an introduction, and for each country I included 2 parts for each of my slides, including Sudan, China, Brazil, India, Afghanistan, and Chile, as well as a conclusion and my cited sources as the last 2 slides. This would be my about me. My name is Adrian Tillman. I'm going to be graduating PSU with a BFA in Media Studies, and obviously I would be a senior at the time of doing this class. I joined this class to further my knowledge in film and global issues, as well as the hopes of getting a film minor, but unfortunately I was unable to do that. Going back to our first class, I introduced my main hobbies, and I included reading, hanging out with friends, listening to music, and catching up on Marvel movies, including the comics and all the TV shows, as well as getting into new musicals. So in my introduction, I included this. For these slide collections, I used 2 slides per each country to show what I have learned through the themes of each module. I decided to go into more depth within current ones that we've discussed as quiz options such as the Hazara and the Dinka people, just learning more about the terminology or the people, and using this method I hope to explain a higher level of competency for each country, as well as incorporating what we've learned throughout the movies in their themes to show what each country has grappled with. Starting off, I've included the Dinka of Sudan. The Dinka are a Nilotic group located in southern Sudan, making up currently 4.5 million people along the White Nile and in the Bahr el Ghazal region. It is said that they are originated from the Gezer region of modern Sudan roughly in 3000 BC. Their lifestyles remain fairly pastoral, with having deep traditional roots to southern Sudan due to flooding and agricultural harvest. Migration is used as a response to the flooding and to drier regions to maintain a societal balance. Agriculture is one of their main forms of profit, and cultivation bringing people together. With their pastoral history and traditions, cattle also holds main control over their lives for migration, marriage, and also the naming of children. The Dinka, as we have seen throughout the movie, struggled as a result of the Second Sudanese Civil War, with major displacement of 20,000 boys traveling from Kenya to Ethiopia. They have now overcome the war, but issues still remain with displacement and agricultural struggles, since that is still one of the challenges today. The Rapid Support Forces, otherwise known as the RSF, is a Sudanese paramilitary operation by the government. It was founded as a result of the War of Darfur that previously worked alongside the SAF to those in opposition to the government in 2013. In 2015, they were seen committing war crimes of displacement in villages across the Sudanese border. Today, they have sought to be established as the governments of peace and unity since 2025, and have been in a civil war against the SAF, and having no ceasefire, causing more displacement. Some of these accused war crimes include genocides, raping, and the killing of non-Arab people across Sudan. Confucianism, which is an ancient Chinese philosophy based around ethics and moral principles, was adopted in roughly 136 BCE. It was then recognized as state policy, including the 5 classics that I've included few: Ren, Li, Xiao, Yi, and Junzi. These are the few of the main principles that go under the Golden Rule: do unto others as you would have done unto you. A few of these principles are focused on the kindness as well as filial piety, which means to give righteousness and honor to ancestral. At the time of Chairman Mao's dictatorship, he did not agree and criticized Confucianism, even though with filial piety, it still resembled some of the communistic traits and characteristics of caring towards ancestors at the time. These values hope to retain social harmony by also being reflected within the family and government positions. A structured hierarchy includes the 5 key relationships: ruler to subject, father to son, husband and wife, older brother to younger brother, and friend to friend, and is also equal within the 5 key virtues. I chose to include Chinese cuisine as that was a part of my element of the country presentations. A few common ingredients that are seen in Chinese dishes include rice, wheat, aromatics such as ginger, garlic, and onions and scallions, soy sauce, cooking wine, oyster sauce, and chili bean paste, and those are somewhat common throughout some of their main vegetable and snack and regional specialties, such as dim sum, Peking duck, and mapo tofu. Each region throughout China also has different takes and different uses of spices, such as Szechuan being known for having more pungent, spicy flavors, while Anahu use mountainous foods and herbs and spices. I decided to include about the strict eating that is used for seating, including the seniority and guest status changing your placement at the table. They also eat facing the east, as it recognizes new beginnings, sunrises, and prosperity, and also the arrangement is personalized to each place, but usually consists of a personal bowl, plates, chopsticks, soup bowl, spoon, saucer, and your own teacup. The favelas include a low-income urban self-built sense of community, with neighbors up to roughly, as of the time, 16.4 million within 2,348 favela locations. These self-built shacks and homes were a result of many soldiers and low-income families from the Canudos War, as well as the massive migration to Rio de Janeiro in the 1940s. They are usually traditionally built on hillsides to avoid major city costing, and with that it does have issues with electricity, as well as sanitation and community problems with a threat of drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and political struggles within police and community. While there was a major drug crisis within the 1990s, it still exists today, with murder rates and violence levels still being exceedingly high within the favelas compared to other spots within Brazil and without Rio de Janeiro. Capoeira was a result of West Central African enslaved people bringing mixed elements of dance and fighting in order to combat against their oppressors. Before the 1800s, some slaves were able to express their African traditions, but as they were forced to later keep them concealed, they developed a way of acrobatics, dance, and martial arts. It had to remain underground due to the enslavement, and it was criminalized and marred by gangs and in larger cities such as Rio de Janeiro. It is traditionally used by playing in a circle, or otherwise known as a roda, that consists of musicals, singers, students, and teachers that surround a fighter. The beat and the tempo of the fighting is led by a joga, a type of drum. Students or alumnos can receive belts based on their performances. Some of the songs that are used in these dances reflect religion or old capoeira folk songs of the times of the enslaved people doing these dances. Today, outside of Brazil, capoeira is used as a way of cardio and strength training, as it includes acrobatic movements. Within India, on roughly December 1992 to January 1993, there was a British policy that created a divide and rule that caused tension between Hindu and Muslim communities. The riots started as a reaction to the Babari Masjid demolition by the Hindus of Ayodhya. This started as a large central paramilitary started to do a retaliation and brought down the monastery. As Hindus began to hold victory processions as a way to rub salt into the wounds of the Muslims expressed their anguish by the removal of this temple, and in turn 900 Muslims mainly were murdered as a reaction to this political reaction. What followed in later months can be told as the Bombay bombings, and some complicity is assumed to be within the government by both those in favor of the mosque and those that are or against the riots. Bollywood originated from Bombay, which is now known as Mumbai, as the Lumiere brothers introduced Bombay to cinematography, and then later it became the center of India's Hindi film industry and became the largest. Its birth became in 1913 from Dada Sheb Phalik, known as the father of India's cinema, that created a full-length film. And later to now, Bollywood has ingrown and influenced themes including romance, comedy, marriage and family, musicality, escapism, as well as a wide variety of dance that has evolved throughout the years. The Bollywood types of dance emulate the energetic movements and the colors used within these films. Within the year of 2023, up to 1.3 billion was made throughout the year, with the usual income being roughly 560 million to 1 billion. Most of the dancing includes many types of dance costumes, including jewelry to enhance the finger work, as well as bangles, earrings, and the use of henna on hands and feet. The Hazara is known to be comprised of the most Persian and Mongolian cultures, dating back from its migration to the Hazara Mountains from the 16th century Mongolian dynasty. They remained without trouble until the 1980s, when they have received, to this day, enduring religious persecution based on their Shia Islam beliefs. By Abdul Rahman Khan and his Pashtun armies, he caused the displacement from 1888 to 1893 with multiple massacres. The Hazara have faced significant marginalization as well as political marginalization, as they cannot stand up for their own communities in a governmental practice. By the Taliban's formation in 1994, they imposed more Pashtun laws and Sharia law against the Hazara, which then held power until 2001. And up until 2021, they did have a reformation, which is still holding authority over those in Afghanistan, causing more problems and displacement to the Hazaras. The Durand Line is known as the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan that was instituted by the British Empire in 1893. It was created between the Great Game between Russia and the British Empire to stop the Russia's expansion towards southern regions that could include Pakistan and Afghanistan at the time. Before the creation of the Durand Line, the first Anglo-Afghan and the second was held between 1839 to 1880. The third Anglo-Afghan War, however, did grant Afghanistan full independence from British. However, Sir Henry Mortimer Durand created a divide against Afghanistan and Pakistan, and today it is debated if they are recognized between those two countries, as Pakistan does, causing issues since 2017. Afghanistan, however, does not include it and validate it as a line, as it separates many ethnic groups, such as the Pashtun, Bulak, and Punjabis. To this day, it does have current issues with the Taliban. The Chilean coup d'etat of 1973 marks the military overthrow of the Marxist president Salvador Allende. The U.S. was seen to have strained relationships before then, as it tried to develop the Alliance of Progress that was signed by John F. Kennedy to make sure to stop the spread of socialism. After this and later presidential running, Salvador Allende tried running, yet was bought out by other campaigns that were allegedly funded by the U.S. government to help ensure him not taking office. However, later in 1970, he did win the presidential election, even though the U.S. tried to divert funds. After his presidential inauguration, the U.S. limited aid to Chile. Allende's presidential and political occupation was to make sure that people received health care and that businesses and farms were nationalized to increase wages all throughout the country, yet there were many demonstrations and strikes against him for the upcoming years until 1973. While there was a previous failed coup by Lieutenant Colonel Roberto Super, on September 11th, the military began a coup against the palace. His final broadcast to his people was, "Long live Chile, long live the people, long live the workers." It was reportedly that he tried to defend the palace as they were under attack. His death, however, was regarded as a suicide. Only 2 days later was when Augusto Pinochet took office, in disregarding and dismantling his leftist ruling. Following Pinochet's dictatorship and rise into office was the political opposition that favored Allende's presidency. Over the course of his dictatorship, around and roughly 3,000 people were abducted. They were subjugated to killings, beatings, torturing, as well as disappearances, with most assumably being lost at sea, or within unmarked gravestones and holes. After his ruling in 1990, the National Truth and Reconciliation Commission made sure to document over 3,000 victims that were assumably dead or missing, with still some missing and not found or recorded to this day. From this and to this day, for the families, they have grown distrust against the government as they tried to hide away their families and loved ones. However, some still favor Pinochet's ruling. Only in 2023 did the former President Gabriel Boric institute the National Search Plan. By this, they tried to locate over 1,400 people that are still missing and to bring justice to the families by developing better forensic data and increasing resources in order to find the missing persons. Before this plan, only roughly 300 people were found, yet it still leaves a large sum of people still missing. However, within recent rulings up until April, it has been institutionalized and helped in furthering better resources in order to contact these missing persons. In conclusion, I believe that this has furthered my understanding in other countries around the world, and that these slides encompass elements that helped shifted the country to what it is now. By watching the cinema and the films that we've watched in class, it has shown how different cultures and people in these snippets of these lives can better the understanding of how each of us can affect the other person, and how rulings from previous dynasties or eras of time can still affect countries today. And I'd also like to include that I thoroughly enjoyed this class, as it allowed me to learn more about the world, and thank you. And these would be my sources. Thank you so much. Goodbye.